Welcome back, everyone. This Veterans Day, we surprised a veteran in our community with this custom epoxy flag. Watch the step-by-step process on how we made it.
Alright guys, so I got my hollow core door here. Before I do the art on it, before I epoxy it, I want to show you guys a cool little trick to minimize having drips on the bottom edge. So what I'm going to do, I've already wiped it down with denatured alcohol. I'm going to flip this and tape the bottom edges all around it. That way once we're done with the top, resin's been cured, we can rip that tape off and we'll pull any drips off. We'll have a nice clean edge. So I'll kind of show you how we do that. This is obviously going to be the top, so I'll just flip this around and then I'm just going to run tape right on the outside edge, and I'll still flatten off my drips, but it's not as big a deal if we get some. And this is really nice, especially if you're not going to wait around for the drip. So you can do this, go about your day, come back the next day and pull it. We just want to make sure we're right on that edge. And you can even be a little bit inside. That way it kind of locks it off, locks it into the edges. We basically run all our edges and then we'll come back and finish off the corners with a razor blade. So I'll tape this next one a little bit inside so you can see. So I'll go like, say, 1/8 of an inch inside that edge. That way the epoxy can kind of get underneath there. All right, so now I'll grab a razor blade and show you guys how to do these corners. Okay, so we're gonna clean this corner up. Again, it's not a big deal. Since this is the back side, no one's gonna see it, but if you want to, we'll line this up with one side and then take a razor blade, press down, and then we'll just tear it. So we'll get a nice straight edge. Obviously this is already covered, so this doesn't matter. So now we have a nice square edge there. Simple way to do it. All right guys, it's epoxy time. I'm gonna be using our Leggari Art Neptune Blue with our Leggari Art epoxy resin. As you can see, I've taped the edges. That way I'm not dripping resin everywhere, and I'm not doing a dirty pour, but I still tape the edges just because I don't want resin dripping off and wasting it. And then when I'm done doing my design, I'll pull that, brush my edge in, and then it can drip as I walk away. And you also saw how I taped the bottom edges for our drips, so we can scrape those off, or don't have to scrape those off if we do have drips. It's gonna be a really cool technique, so you guys aren't gonna wanna miss this. So I'm gonna be doing our Neptune Blue base coat, and then I'm gonna be using red spray paint and a squeegee, and I'm gonna blend the design, and then once that's dry, I'm gonna ghost the stripes on, and this is gonna be an awesome art piece. So I always like to pour a bead down the middle, kind of let it level out a little, try to get it all the same thickness as it levels out. And then when I just spread it back and forth, it'll give me a pretty even coat everywhere. All right, so now I'm gonna take a squeegee. Since we're not using, a roller or blending the colors with a roller, there's no point in using a roller and getting roller hairs in it. So I'm gonna use a squeegee. If you guys don't have squeegees, you can just use cardboard, and I'll show you. I'm gonna do the design using just a sheet of cardboard. You see how fast it is with the squeegee. Same technique we show for our base coat floors. And notice I'm squeegeeing at an angle. I'm not holding it straight up and down, and I'm not applying a lot of pressure. All right, now I'll kind of work it to the edge. Just tilting that my way a little and pushing the product towards the edge. So if I want to move product out, I'll just tilt it the other way, it'll push it out that end. If I tilt it this way, it'll push it towards the edge. Really simple and fast way to do your base coats. All right, so there's basically our base coat, pretty simple. Now what I'm gonna do is just take apple red spray paint, because we're going for that American flag colors. So I don't want to get too much in there at once, just in case I wind up pouring a lot out. So we'll start with a smaller amount. And I'm just gonna go through and do kind of veins just randomly throughout this, all different directions. Now, when I was thinking of this design, I was either gonna go the same way the stripes do, or I was gonna do it kind of random. We decided to go random veins, and then the stripes will be straight, should give a really cool look. And we'll do a little bit more. And we can always add more. We can't really take it away, so we'll maybe start with this amount. I'm just going around and getting some of that red right to my edges. That way we don't really have any bare spots. All right, so I just got a piece of cardboard, use my straight edge, and I'm just gonna start following these veins and just kind of blending it in, right? All random directions. Kind of following the veins, but it doesn't really matter. And I can already tell I'm gonna wanna add some more. If I wanna get some more in other places, I can kind of dab it. So we're just going different directions. And if I was trying to go the same pattern as the lines, I would have just went back and forth and then kind of blended that like the flag stripes would go. Kind of see it starting to take shape. Again, I'm going to add some more red, but I'll get these kind of spread out. That way I know where I want to put it. It's a really cool technique for even doing counters. You could do this relatively easy on floors with the squeegee. Obviously, guys, the less you blend it, the more red it's gonna be. I'm using just the edge too to kind of get certain spots without getting the whole thing. All right, now I'll just use a little bit and I'll go around on all my edges and make sure I got color right to the edge everywhere, which it's pretty close, but there's some spots that are bare. All right, so I'm gonna add some finishing touches. I just wanna point out, using the edge of my squeegee, or the cardboard, gives these fracture veins, which looks really cool. And that's how I got all these, just from running the edge, right? Like all these skinny blue lines, it's running the edge of that cardboard or squeegee or tongue compressor, whatever you guys have, it'll break that up and create those fracture veins. So again, My options were doing the pattern same way the stripes were gonna be, but we opted to do different directions because once the stripes are on here, it's gonna look, it would look cool either way, but we just decided to go this route. Again, you can go straight back and forth lines similar to our wood grain patterns. But the last thing I'm gonna do is lightly miss some random spots and then just isopropyl it real quick so we get some really cool cells. And I'm not gonna do it everywhere, just random spots. So again, I'll just kind of ghost it, and it doesn't take much. And then just isopropyl it real quick. And you can kind of see what it does. Create some really cool effects. Again, I'm not gonna isopropyl everything, and I'm not gonna ghost everything. Just randomly throughout the flat board here. Get some on our edges. So you can see it creates a really cool effect. And all these will stay and not disappear because we're ghosting the spray paint onto it. And then we have obviously the spots that I didn't hit. So this is gonna look really good. I just wanna make sure I get some of that on the edges too, right to the edge. All right guys, so final step, I'm gonna pull the tape now, let the resin start dripping, brush in my edge, and then I'll just have to periodically come back, scrape the bottom edge. And again, we did that tape down there, that way we don't have to worry about, you know, having a couple of drips or something, shaving them off. We'll pull the tape and those will pop off, and I'll show you guys that too when we do it. So we're gonna pull the tape. Probably want to wait a couple minutes so it can start dripping, and then I can brush my edge in, that way it flows over nice and evenly. All right guys, so we're gonna take a cheap little chip brush, pull off some of the hairs, and the resin's starting to flow now. So some spots might need a little more resin, so I can use the blue container because there's still resin there. I didn't get it all out. I can dip my brush in there to help cover the edges. That way the resin can flow evenly. So you can see we got a lot of surface tension. Nothing's wanting to flow evenly. And so I'm just gonna brush this in and just coat everything. That way it can start to flow evenly. And it's good to get your brush soaked up with epoxy first. That way we're not soaking the resin off the board. And then what'll happen now is that design will flow over evenly, and these edges will look amazing. So we'll just go around and like here's a spot right here, a perfect example. It's not gonna flow there. There's just not enough resin there. So what I'll do is I'll take our container that we had our base in, and I'll coat right up to that epoxy edge, and that'll make it flow. So now there's no surface tension. It's all got a layer of epoxy on it, and it can start flowing over that edge and bringing the top layer down with it. And I want to also point out, make sure your edges, your corners are rounded. If they're square, the resin's not going to want to flow over evenly and easy. So you really have to work your edges in. Just put a little bit of a rounded edge on that, and it's going to make your life a lot easier, especially on like counters. So I'll finish this up, and then I'll show you guys how we pull the tape on the bottom and not have to mess with the drips. All right, so I'm going to pull the back tape. Obviously got a little crazy here, went past the tape there, so that might have to be scraped off, but I kind of started here, and if you just pull into it, you can kind of see how it just pulls that off. So if you had, say you had a bunch of drips on here, it would just start pulling those off. And that's it, guys. Pretty cool little trick and simple to do to minimize having to scrape off your drips. Like we got some really thick spots here. We'll see how this pulls. See how it's just pulling that epoxy right off. So now we got a nice straight edge, no drip marks. You can see how thick that resin is on here. It's still a little soft, but we'll finish pulling this off. You see all the drips on here. So if you didn't want to wait around, had something else to do, this is perfect because now I don't have to worry about sanding my edges. Just took all the drips off with the tape.
We want to now show you how to apply our flag decal so that you can ghost your flag on the piece of art that you're doing. Now, this little clip is not going to be for this exact flag, so just kind of ignore that, but this is how we got the flag look. We're gonna put the decal on the wood now. Now these decals, we actually provide these decals if you'd like, and they fit on a 36 by 80 wide board. Now again, we design them like that because a lot of our followers and a lot of people, including ourselves, we use the hollow core doors, and that's what size they are. So it makes it easy for the decal to just sit within that width. Now the flag is actually a little bit smaller than that. It has a nice border around it. But again, we make them to fit 36 by 80 inches perfect. So the first thing you're gonna do is lay it out on your board, and you're just gonna even up the edges a little bit. Once the edges are evened up, you're gonna go to the middle or a little bit to the left or right, and you're gonna be careful. You're gonna put some tape and you're gonna run it down the side, stick it to the side, all the way underneath the art. And what we're doing is we're just tacking it in place so that it doesn't move. So now I can't move it. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to flip this side up, and we're going to peel the back and then cut it. So we'll show you what that looks like. Now we're gonna peel this side up, and just lay it back like this. And we're gonna cut as straight a line as we can right by this flag. Then we're gonna remove that. We'll show you the process. Okay, so we got Alex here helping, and I want to reiterate something, that when you cut this line, try to get it as straight as possible. You don't want it real jagged and wavy, and that'll make more sense here in a minute. So one thing we're gonna do is, I have Alex down on this side of the board, and I'm not gonna let it hit the board yet. I'm gonna be very careful. I'm just gonna hand him the top of the flag. And this is kind of what you wanna see. You wanna see it where it's not taped down, it's taped down here, and you want to curve like this. You don't want to pull it real tight, like Alex, pull it tight for a second. You don't want that because you'll be fighting him the whole time. You want it to be loose where you're working with it. And then he's going to slowly drop the flag as I'm going across it. So I'm going to grab one of my debit cards here. Don't look at the number, it's wrong. And as he's dropping it, I'm just going to go across, and I'm just gonna slowly put this down as he's, okay, wait, Alex. And see, watch, I'm communicating with him. Okay, go down a little bit further. And what I'm doing is I'm just going across. I'm trying to maintain my straight line. Dropped a little bit more. Okay, hold on. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for any kind of like creasing and things like that. You want to try to keep it loose until it's actually being put down. Now, because we're going to be doing a lot of spray paint on this, it's a very forgiving process. It's not like you're putting it on a wall and it has to stay like that forever. We can actually mess with it a little bit when it's down, but you want it as nice as possible. All right, Now we have half the flag down. We'll push it down better in a minute. Now we can remove our tape. And we're gonna flip this side up. And the reason why you want your line cut as straight as possible is you notice when I flipped that over, this flipped right out. None of it was locked in. If you have jagged cuts, you'll flip it over and some of those pieces will be locked in by places that are stuck down. So it's really important that you have a pretty straight cut. And now, as you can imagine, we're gonna do the same process as we did on that side. So I'll give this to Alex. I'll pull that card out again and we'll just continue to do the same thing as he's dropping it. Now, put this away. Don't need people taking that. Now I'm gonna grab a roller, and you can do this with your credit card if you want, with your debit card, and you can just begin to work it a little bit. Now, the part of the decal that will remain down is basically all the white that you can see through it. We're going to spray paint this. So I'm not concerned about trying to push down all this clear. What I'm really trying to do is push down all the white. So I want to specifically go around the stars and on these edges, and I'm basically just gonna try to push this down a little bit. You can even do it with your fingers. You're mainly concerned about these edges. If you have a roller, you can even roll over them. But that's the goal. It's just a giant sticker. We're trying to get this sticker stuck down to our board. Just gonna follow all the edges. And we still have an ability, when we pull this is called transfer paper. When we pull this transfer paper, there will still be an ability to do some of this, where if we need to push some of it down again, we can do that. So now that we have a lot of this pushed down, we can actually pull the transfer paper. Another reason why you don't want to push down too hard is if you happen to use any spray paints on the top of your design. If you rub down the clear part too far, sometimes you can pull a lot of the spray paint off. Now it's not gonna make too much of a problem for you, but you just want to be conscious of that. What I'm looking for when I'm pulling this is, because I am looking for things, I want to make sure, especially on the edges where it's thinner, that it's not ripping the edges up and kind of twisting it. Again, it's gonna be pretty forgiving, and I'll show you how to fix some things if you do have an issue. Really simple. Now what we're gonna do is we only want to put the flag on the top of this board. And because our decal, we want to make it easy to put on the board, we didn't have it overlap the edges very far because we wanted it as an easy guide for you. But what we do is we actually tape off the edges so we don't get spray paint on them. So I'm just going to take some blue painter's tape on the edge like that, and I'm just going to fold it all the way down the side, so that I'm not getting any spray paint on the side. As simple as that. I'm gonna put this right on the edge. Same thing. If you're using a thicker board or something a lot thicker that has a thick edge, you may need 2 pieces of tape. I'm only putting it on about 1/4 of an inch, just enough to really hide that side. You want to make sure on your corners that there's no corner exposed either. Sometimes this tape leaves an edge exposed, so you just want to go around and make sure all of the edges are tucked in nicely. Like this. See where I pulled the tape? There's that little, you know, it seems insignificant, but you don't want to have to fill anything later. So now all you're gonna do before you spray paint is you're just gonna look around to make sure right on the edges of your decal. I'm not concerned about little bubbles inside the decal like this. There's no need for me to try to work all these bubbles out because they're not ever going to create a problem. The only thing you really want to be aware of is any type of bubble that's right on the edge of the decal going into the clear epoxy, right? So let me see if we can see any. There's a lot of tiny bubbles kind of in this area, so I'm just gonna go and push down right around these stars if I see any problem areas. It all looks pretty good. And if you're really nervous about it, just give one last roll with your roller. You just want to make sure that when you spray the spray paint that it doesn't go underneath the decal. And that's it. This is ready to spray, so we're gonna spray it really quick and then we'll pull this right off. It's that fast. Now we're gonna spray our spray paint to make our flag. Now you can just ghost on the spray paint like we're gonna do here, or you can actually make it a solid color. You can spray the stars and then put a piece of cardboard over them and tape it on this edge and then spray the stripes a different color. You can do the stripes every other color. I mean, this is kind of a decorative interpretation of our amazing flag, so that's why we really enjoy doing these. So we're gonna attempt to ghost this one. It's important when you're ghosting that you try not to go back and forth. You try to be very sporadic, very random. So I'm trying to go kind of in a circular motion quickly, and I'm moving in very large areas. So I'm not focusing on one stripe or the other because chances are you're gonna have some line that goes across it. So I'm trying to keep it high, kind of like I'm getting right now, right? And I'm trying to just dust the board is really what needs to happen. Is you just want the paint to just dust the board a little bit. If you need more in areas, make sure you keep the paint can high so you can just get a little bit more. You get too close, you're gonna completely screw up the ghost effect. Okay, it's been a little bit here, a few minutes. The paint has set up. Now we're just gonna pull this tape off the edges and then remove the decal. It's that simple.
So now last step is just figure out what kind of top coat we want to do on this. This is going to look absolutely beautiful. right guys, so it's the final step. I'm gonna flood coat this. So what I did is I took our 1.5 gallon Leggari Art kit. I did our base, and then you saw how I did the red spray paint. Now I'm gonna take the other half of it. So I did 3 quarts on the first half. I'm gonna do 3 quarts on the flood coat to get it glass smooth and high gloss. You've probably seen our other flags where we do the matte urethanes. Super cool. So if you guys want that look, you just can order our urethane from our store. Go to our website, click store, and you'll be able to shop single items. So pretty simple. I'm gonna be using a squeegee because I don't want to run the chance of getting roller hairs in this. Probably the best tool to use when you're doing flood coats, final coats. And obviously we're in a warehouse. I'm probably gonna get some dust and debris in the top of this, but hey, we gotta deal with it. So I got my resin mixed up here. And I'm gonna apply it just like I did the blue base coat. So I'm gonna pour a bead down the middle. Again, try to get it as even as I can, which looks like I did pretty good there. I'm talking about how far it spreads out. That way when I start moving this around, it stays relatively the same thickness. You could even tape off your edges too on this coat if you want. I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna let it drip. And yeah, we'll just go at it. So I'm just gonna go back and forth. I don't want to go so fast where I just throw resin off the edge. And I'll just start working it closer and closer to my edge. I don't want to push it off yet. I want to just get it pretty close, and then I'll kind of work it right to it when I'm ready. Okay, so I got the majority kind of spread out. Now I'll just make sure I got right to that edge. It's obviously gonna start dripping since I'm pushing it to the edge. All right, so I'm gonna brush my edges in. I got my cheap little chip brush here soaked in epoxy. And I'm just gonna start brushing this in. Kind of the same thing we had to do on the base coat. And I want to make sure I get all the way up to this edge, like right here. So see, if I just brush this in here, that's still not gonna flow because we got a mist spot there. So I want to make sure I get that completely coated, and that'll help it flow over. Okay, so top coat's down. I'm just going around picking out some debris. I got, looks like, I don't know, maybe a piece of blue tape in the resin. I'm just gonna take a razor blade. I could just move it to the blue area, but we'll just pull that out. So it's always good to, when you're done, kind of go through different angles, make sure you don't have anything in it. And then obviously have the air turned off, stuff like that, so we don't have, you know, dust debris floating around in the air like we do in the warehouse here. But yeah, we'll see you guys when it's all done.